Welcome back from Christmas break. This video is going to help you remember how we can divide polynomials. So this is going to be the harder example of the two. So let's say we're given the question x cubed plus 3x squared minus x minus 3. And we have to divide that polynomial by x plus 3. Okay, so we are going to use the reverse tabular method. We're going to learn a long division method in the next couple days, but we don't know that yet, so we're going to use the tabular method. And if you'll recall, one thing that'll help us out with the structure is you look at the highest degree of the numerator and the highest degree of the denominator. So we've got our 3 minus 1 gives us 2, and then we have to add one more column on top of that. So instead of just having 2 columns, we are going to have 3 columns. So 1, 2, 3. And because we have a binomial in the denominator, we're going to have a binomial on the side. Okay, so we've got x and 3. And the easiest way to start is in this bottom right corner. We can start with our constant term. So that's one way we can begin. Most students prefer to do it that way, but others prefer to keep this x cubed, this leading value here, and put that in our top left. So either one will work. We'll just do both right now, and you'll see how it'll match up correctly. So, like I said, you only need to do one of those. So at this point, 3 times something needs to give us negative 3. So notice negative 3. 3 times something gives us negative 3. Well, that's obviously just negative 1. Okay? So now we can multiply negative 1 times x and get negative 1x. And we've got to look back up at our initial polynomial here. So you can see our negative 3 is already taken care of. Next, we've got our negative x, which is taken care of. So these two diagonals have to combine to give us our x term. And we already have what we need. So in this box, we're just going to have 0 x's because we already have our negative x. We don't want to screw it up. So with our negative x, 3 times what gives you negative x? Well, that's just 0x. 0 times 3 is 0. And that makes it easier to multiply in our table. 0x times x gives us 0x squared. And just like before, we have 0x squared plus something here needs to give us 3x squared is that term. So that obviously is going to be 3x squared. Looking outward, we have 3 times something gives us 3x squared. Okay, 3 times something. And that is just going to be x squared. Okay, and you'll notice as we multiply our x squared times our x, we do end up with our x cubed. So that means we did it correctly. So our final answer is x squared minus 1. Notice we don't need to put the 0x in there in this case. All right, so here's the easier of the two examples when we divide polynomials. And the question we're going to begin with is 8x cubed minus 6x squared plus 7x plus 6. And that's going to be divided by 2x plus 1. And I'm just going to go through this as if you haven't watched the first video. So what we need to do first is figure out, we are going to use the reverse tabular method in this case. That's the only method we know so far about division of polynomials. We'll learn long division of polynomials the next couple days. But until then, maybe you'll recall, we have to look at the highest degree of our numerator and the highest degree of our denominator and subtract those two. So we end up with 3 minus 1, and we get 2. Then we have to add 1 on top of that, so we get 3. And what that means is our table is going to be a 3-column table. And we are going to have 2 rows because we have a binomial on the bottom here. So 2 rows and 3 columns. Okay, so using the reverse tabular method, we can start with, we're looking at this basically. We need everything in this box to simplify to this. Okay, and in doing so, we can find our 3 terms up here, which will be our solution. Okay, so looking at our polynomial, this constant is going to be by itself, and that's always going to go in this bottom right corner down here. And then we'll see why in just a second. So when we're looking at that 6 down there, we need to figure out, well, 1 times what gives us 6? and we get 6. So obviously when you multiply two constants together, or two regular numbers, you just get another constant. So knowing this, we can move forward. In this box we do 6 times 2x, which gives us 12x. And moving forward here, we don't want 12x's. We need a total of 7x's here. Right now we have too many. Okay, so I have to think to myself, how do I make 12 drop down to get to 7? And that answer is by dropping it down by 5x's. Okay, moving forward, we get negative 5x by multiplying 1 times something. Well, that one is pretty easy too. And we can move forward and multiply this box out now. So negative 5x times 2x gives us negative 10x squared. Okay, so we don't want negative 10x squared, we want negative 6x squared. So we've got to increase this value, needs to combine here to give us a total of negative 6x. So we're going to go up 4x squared. Make sure your like terms, or your terms are alike in x squared. Both of those have an x squared attached to them. So when we combine 4x squared and 10x squared, you can see we get negative 6x squared. Lastly, we take our negative 8x cubed, and there are no other like terms with that, and we are all done. We can figure that out. I take that back. We gotta do one more step. So in order to get, let me back up here a bit. So we figured out we had 4x squared by combining these two. Combine those two and you end up with negative 6x squared. That's why we put this number here. So in order to get this, 1 times what? It's our 4x squared. And to double check, this box here can be found by 4x squared, and 2x gives us 8x cubed. So you'll notice when you simplify all this stuff, this 6 comes down. These two things come down to give us 7x. That's a positive 6. Those two terms combine to give us negative 6x squared and positive 8x cubed. You'll notice now as we simplify all those terms, all of these, to get this is the exact same as this value, and that's exactly what we want in here. Okay, so finally, our answer is 4x squared minus 5x plus 6. And you can see that that is found right over here. 4x squared minus 5x plus 6. Okay.